Ready, Teddy, yes. Hello. This is Scotty Bear. It's because of the plaid.
Yeah, I think they figured that out. But anyway, always good to explain. Here we are at Purana Talk. We're really excited tonight. We've got a wonderful
You are
show.
just always excited. It's another exciting episode. We're excited. It is exciting because
it is exciting.
We're ending we're ending a volume. No, we're not ending a Kanda. We're not ending the Purana, but we're ending volume 13 of the series of Puranas published by Motilal Banarsi Das, based in Delhi, India. And very fine folks. I know them well. I know their business, and you can certainly trust them. You can place your order online, and they'll send to you.
Yep.
Do it.
And we're doing chapter 20 of the
Garuda Purana, second Kanda, sometimes called the Preta Kanda. Functions of the Departed Soul. A treatise on death like you will find in no other literature. This is important stuff. Contributions to world cultural knowledge. Garuda said, having obtained a new body, where does a preta shelter? Released from pretahood, where does he go to live in? Passing through torments in hells which number 84 locks and guarded by Yama and his 1,000 attendants, how do the pretas get release and how do they roam about in this mortal world? The Lord said, O King of Birds, hear. I shall tell you about the region where the pretas live. Men attain pretahood by stealing other man's riches, by indulging in sexual intercourse with other man's wife, or by doing acts of treachery. Is that how you spell treachery? 5. Having incurred sins, they seek for redemption in their progeny. Being bodiless as well as suffering from hunger and thirst, they roam about here and there. Ever the captives released from prison are frightened. No, even the captives, the ink didn't quite hit the page there, so it's just a guess. Even the captives released from prison are frightened at their sight. They seek for means to kill their kith and kin. They bolt doors on their ancestors, put obstacles in the way of manes. Like thieves, they snatch the mane's food in the way before it reaches them. They return home, stay on the roof, watch the activities of their kins. They cause disease and grief to their relatives. Having assumed the form of tertian and such like fevers, remember tertiary fever, quaternary fever, they cause diseases due to cold or wind, like headache or cholera. They stay at the place of leavings or refuse in the company of other ghosts, and partake of food and drink left over by their relatives. In this way, the sinning pretas move about freely. Garuda said, how do the pretas behave, and in what form? How is it possible to know their attitude, since the pretas do not speak to us? If you're pleased to do me a favor, you clear off my doubts, O Lord. I hear that in the Kali age many people become ghosts. Garuda said, and we're at 15, the ghost torments his family people through the enemy. While he was in human body, he was affectionate to his people. Now that he is dead, he becomes hostile to them. He who is devoted to Rudra follows the path of righteousness, propitiates gods, satiates guests, speaks truth and pleasant words, is not tormented by the pretas. So it's interesting.
An interesting distinction.
Well, it's also interesting because, again, we are in an ostensibly Vaishnava Purana, although we've seen that it's a rather more cosmopolitan perspective.
But here they're saying worship of Rudra, which is Shiva.
Who is Shiva, yes. And it's saying, he who is devoted to Rudra follows the path of righteousness, propitiates God, satisfies his guests, speaks truth and pleasant words, and is not tormented by pretas. But Shiva is also known as the lord of these ghosts, and they follow him.
Right.
It's one of the things that worried his potential in-laws when he was courting lovely Sati. He came along with all of his friends, ghosts and goblins, fresh from the cremation ground. Fresh.
Yeah, well.
Hey, baby.
They're his kids.
Vroom, vroom. You can just see this guy. I mean, I just always sort of imagined him as sort of teen Shiva with all of these, like, delinquent friends of his hanging out in leather jackets and, you know, it's a scene out of Grease or something. Like, goes to pick up the girlfriend and or his fiance, and the parents are going, oh, crap. Who is this?
It's a special Nescafe.
It didn't turn out well either, as that myth goes. I'm not sure that we've recorded that one, but it's a good one. It's a big one. It's a really important. God, excuse me, I digress. And I'm drinking Nescafe, the world's #1 best-selling coffee. And I should put air quotes around coffee too. No, it's coffee. It's just
Nescafe.
It's Nescafe. It is what it is. Okay. He who is devoted to Rudra follows the path of righteousness, propitiates God, satiates guests, speaks truth and pleasant words, is not tormented by the pretas. He who does not observe rites, has no faith in the sanctities of the Vedas, hates righteous acts, and indulges in falsehood, is tormented by the pretas. By doing unrighteous acts, O Garuda, he becomes a preta in this Kali age. From the beginning of Satya Yuga to the end of Dvapara, nobody became a preta and nobody suffered from preta. So in the ages, in this great decline that culminates with the Kali Yuga, that is the one that we inhabit, as is apparent to everyone.
And everything we know about history is in Kali.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you know.
Well, there is a notion that, there is a cosmological time frame that puts, I think, Rama, for example, I think he was in the previous Yuga, and he has a kind of historical, you can date the culture that rose at the time that Rama was thought to rule, and so you can kind of calendarize that.
But it was a long time ago.
And a long time ago.
Like, what, 7,000-8,000 years ago?
Yeah. Something like that. Maybe. I'm sure I'll hear from you. Telling us.
Leave a note down.
In fact, I look forward to hearing from you, because this is how I learn. He who, from the beginning of Satya Yuga to the end of Dvapara, nobody became a preta, nobody suffered from pretas. It is observed that of the many children born of one and the same mother, one is happy, one is addicted to bad habits, one is blessed with progeny, one is tormented by pretas, one abounds in wealth, one gets sons who die young, one is burdened with the offspring of daughters, one is at daggers drawn with his relatives. This is all due to the bad intentions of the preta, O Garuda. You've seen this. Everybody's seen this. All the kids, they're all different.
So it's a way of explaining why things go wrong in people's families.
I guess. Not necessarily wrong, but different. One is happy, one has bad habits, one's rich, one is...
But what causes this?
Yeah, why some succeed, others fail, and stuff like that. 21. A woman becomes barren in life, or if she gives birth to children, they die at an early age. There is a loss of wealth and cattle. These sufferings are caused by pretas. If there is a sudden change in his nature, or an enmity with his relatives, or an unexpected calamity, the suffering is due to preta. If a person loses faith in religion, or if he loses the means of his livelihood, or if he feels greedy in excess, or if there is a regular quarrel at home, that suffering is due to pretas,
Mhm.
or preta, singular is what they're using here. If he
And
slays, what?
Whenever they say that, that's a prescription. So they're saying, do offerings to the dead if these are your problems.
Yeah, essentially,
That's what it's saying.
it's more of a diagnosis. It gives the
Well, it's saying what to do.
treatments elsewhere,
It's
but
saying that pretas are the problems. If
Yeah.
you pacify the pretas, it'll settle.
This is again, an area where I would be curious to know a little more about the translations, because it seems to be pronouncing, if ever these things go they could be attributed to pretas, but part of me wants to think, a little more moderate tone, perhaps wants to imagine that it's really telling us that one possible explanation for these things when they occur is pretas, because so many of them seem to me to be things that ordinarily would be understood what's causing them. They arise from less mysterious sources.
But
if you can't figure out what's causing it,
that doesn't mean that there
or if
aren't
it's
these
excessive,
metaphysical explanations
I suppose,
for what they are.
But things have become overdetermined. I mean, it's really
I agree.
What's causing anything?
But you have to remember this is a poem. Somebody is rattling on.
That doesn't discount, logic or things like that. And
I
I wonder about the translation.
Yeah, I understand.
All right, if he slays his parents or approaches God and Brahmins and is found guilty of murder, that suffering is due to a preta. Due to preta. It doesn't, there's no a preta or pretas. It's a little on the English end of.
Yeah.
When crops do not grow up, though the rains are abundant, when the expenditure goes up and income is reduced, when quarrels rise in gravity and that suffering is due to preta. When, on travel to a foreign land, he is distressed by the onrush of wind, O Lord of Bird, that suffering is due to preta. When he associates with the people of low caste, or when he performs disreputable acts, or when he is interested in acts of unrighteousness, that suffering is due to preta. They're using that suffering each time as if it is almost like a diagnosis. It's like an illness.
No, they started treating it like an illness a while ago.
Which, one of the reasons that we're pointing this out, if you haven't been watching all of these others, is that this particular Purana, besides talking about death, includes a very extensive text on Ayurvedic diagnosis and treatment that went on and on and on and on.
About the time we got these tablets and started recording it started.
Yeah.
And
it seemed like all it was
before Ayurvedic. That there was some stories, but not much.
But which kind of contextualized the focus of this as being on death and mortality. Let's face it, health maintenance is a lot of it about mortality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Staying alive. Ooh, ooh.
Or not, right?
Yeah, well, most of this Purana is about
the or not.
And, how the living deal with the dead and how the dead deal with being dead.
And a lot of Garuda's questions have been about, why do we do this?
What the? Yeah, well.
Back to it.
When the hoarded wealth is destroyed, when he associates with people of low caste, or when he performs disreputable, that's right, we did that one. Or is interested in acts of unrighteousness. That suffering is due to preta. When the hoarded wealth is destroyed by misfortune, or when the work in operation bears no fruit, or when there is loss of wealth due to undue taxation, or due to fire or theft, that suffering is due to preta. When an incurable disease sets in, or when children suffer from pain, or when wife suffers immensely, that suffering is due to preta. When one loses faith in the Vedas, Smritis, Puranas, and Dharmashastras, that suffering is due to preta. When one abuses gods, gurus, and Brahmins in their presence or absence, that aberration of nature is due to preta. They didn't say suffering. That's like the first one they didn't say suffering.
Mm-hmm.
that aberration of nature is due to preta. This is due to preta and to no other course when a person suffers from loss of livelihood or break in social position or break in the continuity of lineage. When women suffer from abortion or do not conceive, or when children die at an early age, that suffering is due to preta. And I think by abortion they mean not non-intentional. When he does not perform the annual shraddha in sincerity and has no inclination either, that suffering is due to preta. When you're failing to do the ancestral rites, the rites for the dead, it's because the dead themselves are messing with you. Interesting concept.
It really seems like, ghosts are being blamed for anything that goes wrong.
Yeah, well, that's what it seems. That's again why I had this question of whether we are to regard that as saying that whenever this happens, it's due to them, or whenever it happens and you don't know any other reason it's happening, it's due to them. Because sometimes you know why it's happening. Yeah. So-and-so is sleeping with your wife. It's like, blame a preta, blame him. Stay away from my wife. It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
When on pilgrimage, he indulges in sexual intercourse, which you're not supposed to do on pilgrimage, on spiritual pilgrimage, or neglects his duties, or when he fails to prosper, though he has done acts of piety, that suffering is due to preta. When both husband and wife quarrel at meals, when there's a strong inclination to harm others, that suffering is due to preta. When trade does not prosper, though he has gone abroad where he lives in separation from wife, that suffering is due to preta. When he lives in foreign lands, or when he loses position at home, that suffering is due to preta. When he is inimical to his people, regards his son as his enemy, when he has no interest in home and feels uncomfortable there, that suffering is due to preta. When he refuses to obey his parents and has no love for his wife, is of cruel nature, is lost in his own affairs, that suffering is due to preta. If the funeral rites are not performed in the prescribed way, the soul of the deceased deviates from the righteous path and falls in the company of the wicked. Then Vrishotsarga is the only right to redeem him. Letting go the bull, once again. Vrishotsarga, we come back to this. To release a bull, or a young bull, possibly like a calf, or whatever the correct term is for a young male of the bovine persuasion. O Garuda, a person becomes a ghost when undergoes sufferings if he dies an accidental death, or if his body is not cremated properly. 43. O best of birds, when the descendant knows all this, he should conduct those rites which may release the deceased from ghosthood. If he does not perform rites for the ghost, he himself turns a ghost after death. So if you got a relative who's a ghost and you can get him out of it, and you don't
do it,
you get
to be a ghost too.
That'll
help. Now,
I think we've got a sitcom here.
Yeah, right. You call it Ghost Clearinghouse. See? Don Bardo, tell him what he's won.
Okay, the person whose house is haunted by a ghost does not feel happy or comfortable. He loses faith, pleasure, devotion, discrimination, as well as wealth. His lineage breaks, either at the third or at the fifth generation. In each and every birth he lives a wretched, poor, and sinful life. There are people who have fierce, dreadful, disfigured, and ghostly appearance, who have no regard or honor for their caste, progeny, parents, or womenfolk, who put on fashions, go an unpleasant way, and talk loosely. Alas, it is painful to see them suffer under the force of fate from the recollection of their past sinful deeds.
I bet.
That was a weird place to end,
Well, yes.
but it's all weird. I mean,
It's a different culture. But, basically they're saying,
yes and no.
it
We're all on planet Earth. I don't know.
it may seem like these people that aren't doing this path are having fun, but they're going to pay later.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And, that's used to justify
There's
a lot.
some strange-looking folk out there, and
in
they
the
don't
world.
seem to have ordinary orientation towards caste, progeny, parents, and womenfolk, and they dress funny, and they talk loose, and we shall feel sorry for them because they got ghost in them.
Yeah. Or they're going to be one or something.
It's their past sinful deeds have led them in these ways, and we should feel sorry for them, not envious.
Right.
Get that right.
That's basically it. All right.
Okay.
So
that's
the end of our
volume 13.
We've got more ghost stories to come. Keep in mind, I've ghost hunted for 30 years.
Yeah, it's a professional interest, and
so I know a little about this.
And I think it's always valuable to look at
these
insights into phenomena such as this cross-culturally, because it's curious to see how people in different cultures
do it.
Compare and contrast.
What do they think is happening, and what do they do about it? It's interesting to me that if I had somebody complaining they had a ghost in their house, I would just go and get rid of it. So it's just a different approach.
It's a short book.
But they're not up to quite the same things, and they don't really understand the afterlife process in quite the same way I do, and that's why you find that I argue with them.
It's a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
I mean, their whole. I mean, you could say it starts with their whole social structural order and the caste system and such. It reflects that complexity.
Well,
on the other side of the veil.
Part of that.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
It is.
Okay, let's wind up there. Bye.